Why God removes people. Without explaining why this is not a random video, and you did not arrive here by accident. Some people leave your life without warning, without closure, without explanation. And the most painful part is not that they left, it's that God stayed silent. If someone was removed from your life and you were never told why, this message is for you. The question that haunts the heart. Let's say the question out loud that most people are afraid to ask. Why would God remove someone from my life without telling me the reason? Why no explanation? Why no warning? Why no final clarity? You prayed, you tried to understand, you replayed conversations in your mind, and still, nothing. No answer, no sign, just absence. For many believers, this silence hurts more than the loss itself. Because if God is loving, if God is just, if God is involved, then why would He take someone away and leave you alone with questions? This is not a small question. This is not a weak question. This is a human question. And today, we are not going to rush past it with religious phrases or shallow comfort. We are going to sit inside it and understand it. Part 1. Why God removes without warning. One of the hardest truths to accept in faith is that God does not always explain Himself in advance. Not because He is cruel, not because He is distant, but because explanation is not always protection. We assume that if God warned us, we could prepare, but preparation is not always what the soul needs. Sometimes, preparation creates resistance. If God told you beforehand that someone was about to leave your life, you would cling harder, argue longer, compromise more of yourself. You would negotiate with a situation that was already finished in heaven. So instead of explanation, God chooses removal, quietly, firmly, without debate. This is not punishment. This is intervention. Why warning would have made it worse? Think about this honestly. If you had known ahead of time that this person would disappear, would you have let go peacefully? Or would you have over-explained yourself, tolerated behavior you shouldn't stayed longer than you were meant to? God removes without warning because warning would have delayed obedience, and delay would have deepened the wound. Silence is not absence. Silence is finality without chaos. Part 2. When God ends a role, not a relationship. Here is something most people never consider. Not every person in your life is meant to stay for your entire journey. Some are assigned to teach you, test you, support you for a season, reveal something about yourself. When their role is complete, God does not renegotiate the assignment. He ends it. This does not mean the person was fake. This does not mean the love was a lie. It means the purpose expired, and God values purpose over comfort. This is especially painful because humans attach identity to relationships. We think, if they leave, something must be wrong with me. But many removals have nothing to do with your failure. They are about your future. Why God does not announce role completion. If God announced, this person's role is finished, you would try to extend it. Humans hate endings that don't match emotions, but God works in alignment with destiny, not attachment. So He removes quietly and lets time explain what words never could. Part 3. The pain of no closure. One of the deepest wounds is not loss. It is lack of closure. Closure feels like control, and humans crave control when something ends. But closure can also trap you, because closure invites more conversations, more explanations, more emotional loops. God removes people without closure because closure would keep you looking backward, and you cannot move forward while asking the past to to justify itself. Silence forces you to stop negotiating. And that is where healing begins. Most people ignore this part, and that's why nothing changes. Part 4. Why God stays silent after removal. After someone leaves your life, most people don't ask for them back. They ask for an explanation. They say, "God, just tell me why." And when no answer comes, the silence feels personal. But God's silence after removal is not neglect. It is containment, because explanations given too early become emotional weapons. If God explained immediately, you would analyze every detail, replay every moment, blame yourself or them endlessly. Silence prevents obsession. God knows the human heart. He knows that clarity without maturity creates confusion, not peace. So he withholds the explanation until your heart is strong enough to receive it without breaking. Sometimes that explanation comes years later. Sometimes it comes as understanding, not words. And sometimes it never comes at all. Not because it wasn't important, but because you eventually outgrew the need for it. When silence is a form of mercy, this is difficult to accept, especially for people who think deeply. But God's mercy often looks like restraint. If he answered every why immediately, you would never develop trust. You would rely on explanations instead of faith. Silence forces the soul to rest without understanding, and that kind of rest is stronger than emotional closure. Part 5. The difference between abandonment and protection. Many people interpret removal as abandonment. They think, if God allowed this, he must have left me too. But abandonment and protection feel similar at first. Both involve loss. Both involve pain. Both involve confusion. The difference is revealed over time. Abandonment leaves you weaker. Protection leaves you wiser. Abandonment pulls you backward. Protection pushes you forward. If, after the loss, you gained clarity, you stopped compromising. You began to grow in ways you never did before. Then what felt like abandonment was actually protection disguised as pain. God does not remove to punish. He removes to preserve. Why protection often feels cruel. Protection requires distance, and distance feels cold when you're emotionally attached. But attachment is not always love. Sometimes it is fear of being alone. Sometimes it is habit. Sometimes it is identity confusion. God removes what confuses your identity so you can finally see who you are without distortion. That process is uncomfortable, but it is not unloving. Part 6. When God removes people to save you from yourself. This is a truth few people want to hear. Sometimes God removes people not because they were harmful, but because you were disappearing, you were shrinking, you were adjusting too much, you were tolerating what you shouldn't. And you didn't leave because part of you was afraid of loneliness, afraid of starting over, afraid of disappointing someone. So God intervened. Not dramatically, not angrily, quietly. He ended what you would not. This is not weakness on your part. This is God protecting the parts of you you were neglecting. Why God does not ask permission. If God asked permission, you would say no. You would ask for more time, more chances, more signs. But some situations do not need signs. They need endings. So God removes without discussion and gives you space to become who you were always meant to be. Part 7. The role of free will in divine removal. A common question arises here. Did God cause this? Or did the person choose to leave? The answer is often both. God does not override free will, but he does arrange outcomes. He allows choices that align with what must end. So a person may choose to walk away, but the permission came from God, not to harm you, but to redirect you. This is why some departures feel sudden, even illogical, because the decision was human, but the timing was divine. If this message reached you today, it is not because you are forgotten. It is because you are being protected in ways you could not yet see. God did not remove them to hurt you. He removed them to free you. And if you are still standing, still searching, still listening, then your story is not finished. You were not meant to understand everything immediately. You were meant to grow through it. What left was not meant to follow you forward. And what remains is enough for what comes next. If this reflection answered a question you've been carrying quietly, you don't have to keep it to yourself. Someone else may be carrying the same silence. And if these conversations help you understand your faith without fear or pressure, stay close. This space is for the questions that are rarely spoken out loud,